Welcome to the Intuitive Websites Podcast, bringing you the country's top podcast on internet marketing. I'm your host, Glenn Thayer, and with me today, I have Thomas Young and Dennis McCarthy, search engine guru of Intuitive Websites. How you guys doing today?
We're doing good.
Hey, Glenn.
So today, let's talk about web trends. Let's find out where is the future of the internet going, and what have we seen so far over the last 10 years in trends? Tom, what do you think the most important trend that you've seen so far?
Well, the internet took off when it came on the scene. It had one of the highest adoption rates. In fact, it had the highest adoption rate of any media that's ever been out there, like television, radio, and so forth. But what we've seen in the last couple of years is that the growth is starting to stabilize, at least the growth that we really track, like online conversions or e-commerce, retail sales, and things like that. What you're seeing is tremendous growth in the internet and in the web as a complement to what businesses are doing already and what they're doing offline. And in fact, I'll give you some numbers here to give you a nice idea of how that works. Retail sales, of all retail sales in the U.S., 40 to 50% of those are influenced by the web and by websites. So only 2 or 3% of total e-commerce sales or total retail sales come from e-commerce, right? But retail sales in general have a huge impact based on what people see on websites.
So basically people are going to the websites, checking out what they're interested in purchasing, than actually physically going to a retail store and buying it.
Absolutely. And so the website is doing selling almost the same way the retail store is doing selling. It's just you don't see it because it's invisible. You see your traffic numbers, but they're not all converting and buying online.
Some stores are actually doing that deliberately. Like I bought something from Circuit City online the other day, and I picked it up at the store.
Yeah. They get you in the store, they might be able to upsell you. Then they can use the displays. And the bottom line is that most people still like to shop the old-fashioned way. They like to hold things in their hands and see it and have the experience of walking in the store and that sort of thing.
I think I agree with that. REI runs that a lot, is you can buy things online, have it shipped to the store. You don't pay shipping if you pick it up at the store. And the great part about that is, I think just what you said, is you actually get, as a retailer, you get the foot traffic inside your store. And that customer's in there, and most people don't just come in and buy one thing and leave. They're going to go, oh, you know what? Hey, I'm at REI. I might need a new tent.
That's right.
So you're going to go look at that.
And as the customer, you get the instant gratification of just going to the store and picking the thing up.
And the trend here is going up. More people will be using the web to do that. Right now we're 40, 50%. Whereas actual e-commerce transactions, that may be more or less stabilized. I think it's going to increase as well, but this number is going up faster.
But probably not as much as it was in the previous. Now, would you attribute that to most houses worldwide, most households, should I say, have a computer?
Yeah.
So I think with that plateau, obviously everybody being on, I don't know how many videos on MySpace are posted every single day, 70,000 plus or something ridiculous. But
I know the numbers are staggering. The other thing too is when you shift gears to businesses, 80% or more of businesses out there are using the web to find the vendors they're going to work with, or the other kinds of partnerships they might establish. The web is huge in business to business, and it may be a small part of the actual time spent in selecting a vendor, but it's an absolutely critical part because they'll make a decision whether to move forward and establish a relationship in just a few minutes while evaluating your website.
Based on the look and feel of the website.
Based on the look and feel and the content.
And so you can't afford to have an ugly website anymore. You'll literally be leaving dollars off the table.
Well, that's the trend, and that's what I wanted to focus on here, is that the trend is that more and more companies use the web then as a starting point for the relationship.
So, probably a really good way to look at it is it would almost be like going to a business meeting in shorts and sandals, and you walk into the boardroom and everybody else is wearing a suit.
That's right.
So
we had a client. We walked into their lobby. It was gorgeous. Glass, beautiful photographs all over the place. You look at their website, and it looks like something that was done in somebody's garage. A total misalignment between who they really are and what they're presenting on the website.
Yeah, I just returned from North Carolina, and one of the themes that was presented to me, I was presenting to a group of CEOs, was how do you know that that's a good design versus a bad design? And it was really interesting to hear the CEOs look at me and say, well, why is that not a good design? And what's wrong with the colors and so forth? And what I learned from that is that people really, for the most part, and these are CEOs, don't understand professional, good graphic design for websites versus, well, it's something, it's up there. We can look at it. It makes sense. That's why I think if you want to be serious about internet marketing, you've got to talk to professionals. You've got to talk to people that are in this industry and know what they're doing.
Well, and you also have to make sure, once again, as far as we've talked in previous podcasts about teams. Let's face it, you have your graphic designers. They know design.
That's right.
However, by the same token, your programmers know programming.
Yeah,
and your marketing people know marketing. And so it's being able to bring those three people together to work on something that's effective, that's moving it forward, and then, of course, bring in the user testing. How do you know it's a good design? Well, you've tested it, and you can prove that people come to the website and they stay on the website.
And you used a professional for the design. Users might not know design at a professional level, but they sure know in an instant when something looks bad.
And that leads me right into the next statistic I wanted to talk about, and that's the fact that the majority, in fact 75% or more, of web users are going to be making credibility and trust and other kinds of judgments when they look at your website. And a lot of times they won't know design either. But I tell you what, they know when it's professional and it looks good, it's easy to use, and then they make a credibility based on that. And that trend is growing rapidly now. Dennis and I have been in this field for over 10 years, and so there in the past, people used to be fairly patient with bad websites. they'd see a really bad website and they'd go, yeah, well, okay, whatever, I understand. At least I got the phone number on the website. But that's changing now. So they see a bad website and they think they're going to see a bad company they don't want to work with.
We're seeing with all the analytics that we study, we're seeing a stronger movement to the About Us pages. And you really notice in your own analytics how people move to the About Us page and how quickly, or how popular is your About Us page. And then take a hard look at your About Us page. And if it's not putting your best foot forward, you really need to address it.
Absolutely. And there's a couple more stats that kind of shed more light on this, and that is cart abandonment rates, which are still 50 to 60.
Like shopping cart abandonment?
Right, shopping cart abandonment rates. And when you think about these numbers, they're absolutely ridiculous. 55 to 60% of folks that start to complete a shopping cart then bail out and abandon it. And bounce rates on websites are also 50 to 60% or higher. And a bounce rate is when someone comes to your homepage and immediately leaves. So they spend no time on your website.
You know what I'd be interested in knowing as far as what percentage of that of those stats for the shopping cart abandonment? I would be interested in knowing how many of those abandonments were due to a faulty shopping cart system. Because I know a lot of times I've had to go out of shopping cart systems, like something that I wanted to buy online, when I knew, hey, this is something I had to buy. And I remember going back in, having to clear my cache, and then go back. And I had this problem last week. I had to go in, clear the cache, go back in and reorder it.
Oh, yeah.
And then when I spoke to somebody, because I needed to reorder the program, I actually said, hey, I need a refund on this piece or whatever it was, because I ended up buying it twice. And I let them know. I was like, hey, this is screwed up on your website.
The number one reason for cart abandonment is people putting things in the cart to get a final price. So if you want to improve cart abandonment, explain your shipping policies and any kind of taxes that are going to be charged, and have very clear explanations of your pricing. That's the number one issue. The second issue is like what you're talking about, where forms are messing up online, or people are getting knocked off on their computer, or whatever might happen. But most people that abandon shopping carts because they didn't have an understanding what the pricing would be, so they go ahead and complete a cart to see what the pricing would be. One of the best ways to lower that is to have an easy-to-use cart and explain your pricing.
And put the prices closer to the front. So many people hide the prices kind of in them 2, 3, 4 screens deep.
Yeah.
And people are also making credibility evaluations through the purchasing process. And at that critical point, if they lose credibility, you're doomed.
Absolutely. So when you compare these statistics we talked about, that the majority of folks leave a website immediately or abandon their cart, with the fact that the web is getting a much heavier feel as far as branding and trust and so forth, those are really the two biggest trends. Now, the big retailers and large companies, they have their act together here, but it's the thousands and probably millions and millions of middle-sized companies that are missing huge opportunities by having unprofessional websites that are hard to use, and content that's brochure copy that's hard to read, links that don't work properly, navigation systems that are a mess. It is really hurting your business, and that has to be addressed.
It really probably wouldn't hurt either to whoever's designing the website to take a copywriting course.
Well, it's interesting because we were talking about this earlier, the fact that if you go to a retail store or you go to someone's office and you see a sign that has a misspelled word on it, you're going to say to that person in that store or the office, you're going to say, your sign out front has, welcome is misspelled. There's not 2 M's in welcome or whatever. They're going to tell you. People are going to tell you. But you do something like that on your website, and people won't tell you. They just leave. And that's what a bounce rate is. A bounce rate is people saying, your website didn't do it for me, but I'm not going to tell you what the problem was. You got to figure that out. I'm just going to leave.
Or it could be that they had no business being there in the first place. Probably many of those bounces are for that reason, and we'll be addressing that in our next podcast.
Or they're coming off a pay-per-click or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know what would be good rates then. I think if you can shoot for a bounce rate around 30%, I think you're doing great.
25-30%, very healthy.
Right, and that is very doable, and we see that with some of our clients. And same thing with cart abandonment. You get to cart abandonment into the 30s or even the low 40s, then you're doing really well, because what you're doing is you're saying it's just those people that want to get that final price, and then they'll come back later and buy, or they're gonna bail out, go to a store and buy. That's fine. You're going to have some of those.
We've had some clients though with 80-85% bounce rates on websites that are mostly paid traffic. So they're taking this $10,000 a month in their Google AdWords campaign, and they're literally throwing it out the window.
And $8,500 of it's going out.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So, these are the trends we're seeing. If you look at the web, you can really break down trends into 2 areas. You can break them down into consumer and business to business. And in the consumer areas, people use the web as a convenient tool to make it easier for them to make a buying decision. And they're looking at big retail websites and so forth. But in B2B, that's really where the opportunities are, because there's so many companies out there doing business to business work who are not giving enough importance to their website and the impact it's having in getting new clients, keeping clients, or dealing with referrals and that sort of thing. And I think that the greatest improvement in the web comes in those middle-sized companies.
So what are some action items that our listeners should be looking at?
Well, we've talked about this before. I think you definitely have to be looking at your stats. You've got to be looking at your stats. Start with that bounce rate. Start with and look at your conversion rates, and look at the cart abandonment. You should have that on your shopping cart.
We're to remind all of our listeners. We know that all of you have heard this before, but what website should they be looking at as far as the analytics are concerned?
Google Analytics is free. It's attached to Google AdWords if you run Google AdWords, and it is one of the finest website analysis packages that's out there, and it's got a great price.
Free is always good,
and it's on, and it's free because they want you to buy ads with them. But that's a whole other story. But you can find information for that on Google.com.
Okay.
Absolutely. Realize that where is the web playing a role? Realize that. How is it playing a role in your business? Also realize that people are not going to call you and tell you their problems with the website. They're just going to leave. So look at your bounce rate, and then look, listen to these podcasts and get an effective strategy in place so that you can deal with these trends that we're seeing.
Well, that's going to be more user testing especially
Absolutely.
If you're getting high bounce rates. It's definitely go back to user testing, and that could even be your friends and coworkers looking over it.
It is so important. You can call a handful of clients and just ask them, what would you like to see on our site?
I'd say give it the ugly test. Ask 10 people, hey, what do you think of this website? And see what kind of initial response, that first half second, they look at the colors, the graphics, the layout, and that's the impression that they make. The people never even get to the copy before they decide whether or not your company is worthwhile. So that running it past people just to get a sense of, hey, what do you think of the look and feel of this website? And also, in your industry, look at the look and feels of the other website. If you find that your website is below par against other competitors in your industry in terms of look and feel, you have to make some changes immediately because they will pick your competitors.
I agree with that, and also the idea of simplicity. I think Google shares now are over $500 a share. And look at the website, google.com. What do you do on the website? There's one thing you do, and you search. Take a look at your business and ask yourself, what are the 2 or 3 things that are just so fundamental to us? And feature those on the site. Make them really easy to get to. Don't be afraid of having white space, and have great content to back up those links.
See, right there, I think that's the gold.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just said the gold. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Think Google. Think $500 a share.
And attractive.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there you heard it, folks. This has been the Intuitive Websites Podcast, and for more information and a whole lot more, visit intuitivewebsites.com.